My name is Michelle Tefertiller, and I am the Primary Education Director at Memoria Press. Today we are going to talk about my favorite part of the curriculum, enrichment. The enrichment portion of the curriculum includes the study of geography, history, science, poetry, music, and art. Lessons are discussion and observation based around themes pulled from a weekly classic children's book. We call these classic children's titles the Read-Aloud books. There is one read-aloud for each week. From this read-aloud, the theme for all these other subjects I listed is derived. To teach the enrichment portion of any grade, K-2, you will need an enrichment guide, which details most all the information needed to lead discussions. Along with the enrichment guide, you will need a read-aloud set for the grade level. These titles are classic ones that enhance any library shelf. For poetry, we use two poetry books, Animals, which is illustrated by Eric Carle, and A Child's Book of Poems, which is a compilation of poetry for the very young. There is a set of 5x7 art cards for each grade level. Each set will cover a variety of artists, art periods, and media. There is a separate book that contains the information on the weekly music selections and a biography of the composer. Each grade level has a craft book. The crafts within align with the weekly read-aloud in some way. There is a picture of the completed craft and simple, easy-to-follow directions. The composition and sketchbook that was included if you purchased the core curriculum will be used several weeks in the enrichment program. Finally, in second grade, we add Patterns of Nature, a science-related book, and Stories of Great Americans for Little Americans. Both are added at this level to provide expository reading practice. These are all the pieces to the program. With all these pieces, you would think there is much to do in order to teach the program, but there is not a lot of prep for the enrichment portion of the curriculum. I do suggest you organize your read-alouds in order of the weeks they are to be read. The read-alouds are meant to be read out loud several times a week, preferably every day. There is so much to discover within the covers that one reading is just not enough. Students love the repetition as well. They enjoy knowing what will happen and in becoming familiar with the characters. Each new reading is a valuable language lesson, bringing out more comprehension and in-depth thinking. Introduce the read-aloud by showing the cover and asking if the students can guess what the book is about. If your child can read the title, let them try. Then ask if they have predictions as to the storyline. After this introduction, talk about the author and illustrator. The biographies within the enrichment guide are on the student's level and are appropriate to read directly from the guide if you wish. After they know a little about the author, complete the Before You Read activity. Next, read the story. The first time through, stop after each page to discuss. Explain vocabulary that may be unfamiliar or phrasing that might be foreign. Definitions for many of the words and phrases will be defined for you in the enrichment guide, so prior to reading, familiarize yourself with these definitions and have the guide within reach for those days your child asks the meaning of a word and you draw a blank. Asking comprehension questions after each page helps weave the storyline together and ensures your child is understanding the meaning of what is being read. These questions are also listed for you in the enrichment guide. The second day, when you read the story, read all the way through to the end, saving the questions until then. Don't feel as if you need to ask all the questions every day or even at all. Those are listed as a guide. After reading through them, you will remember some. This will make the questioning time feel more natural. The third time you read the story, stress the illustration elements. Vary the discussions each day. You will find that with each reading, new aspects for discussion will be found. To teach the science, geography, or history parts of the enrichment, you will likely need some extra books on the themes we select to enhance the information we provide. Memoria Press sells a science and enrichment set for each grade K-2, which is comprised of age-appropriate science or history-themed books. From these, we will learn enough to have a discussion. Students learn more from these discussions and observations than they do from simply reading a text and answering comprehension questions, as in modern science textbooks for these levels. For geography-related topics, you will find a globe and map of the United States come in handy. Since some geography topics are introduced during the morning recitation as well, a map of the U.S. would be a good visual to have in your classroom area. During the story of Ferdinand, students like to see how far Spain is from their own state, and to discuss which ocean must be crossed to reach Spain, and what other countries border Spain. How many different modes of travel must be used to reach Spain? A discussion of the cultural differences between Spain and the U.S. would be next, as well as coloring the Spanish flag. There's so much to learn, and all of this is done without a textbook. Like other enrichment items, poetry is for exposure. Exposure to the beauty of the English language. While the goal is not memorization, some shorter poems may be learned just from repeated hearings. Since poetry is often trickier to understand, going line by line to discuss meaning is important. It will take time for students to begin recognizing what the poet is trying to say, because their phrasing is so different from the way we speak and read normally. But let me encourage you to continue reading the poetry orally, because students need to hear elevated language and the variety of phrasing poetry provides. For instance, after reading the example of haiku written by Benjamin Franklin, who knew he wrote poetry, students are not asked to compose haiku. Rather, we discuss the difference in that poem compared to others we have read. We always discuss rhyme and sometimes meter, but we always want to appreciate the beautiful way in which the poet phrases his words. As the grade levels progress, so does the length of the poems. So memorization of these, as I indicated before, is not the goal. Exposure to the beauty of the words and phrasing is. The only prep work to teach the poetry is to read through the material in the Enrichment Guide and be familiar with the vocabulary. You need not be an art historian to teach the art enrichment. In fact, art introduced in the primary grades is for exposure to beautiful, famous works of art. Art pieces tie into the theme of the read-aloud and vary by artist, time period, and media. The only preparation would be to read through the biography of the artist and decide if you want to read this verbatim to the student or only share sections of the information. Students enjoy reviewing the pictures previously studied and recalling the name of the art piece as well as the artist. Keeping the art cards that have been introduced either in a special zip bag or hole punched and on a ring for the student to grab and enjoy takes little preparation, yet provides an easy grab activity. Art recitation is built into the recitation line in your curriculum manual, and a set of art cards works well for this flashcard style review. Many of my students could recall the names of all the pieces and most of the artists by the end of the school year just from a weekly comprehensive review of their cards. The music piece chosen for each week does not theme in as perfectly as the art or poetry, but each piece is classic in nature and will need to be introduced to your student because they are not likely to hear these in their daily cartoons, movies, or radios very often. As with poetry and art, there is little prep work for music. Simply read through the biography of the composer and determine whether you will read it or what parts you will share. Memoria Press has compiled playlists on iTunes, YouTube, and Spotify for the appropriate grade levels of music, all of which are linked in the description below. Please be advised that ads before and after the YouTube videos may contain questionable material. Children need the arts to lift their bodies, minds, and spirits above the everyday humdrum of their lives. It is enriching, or enrichment, as we call it. Thank you for joining us today. If you found this video helpful, let us know by commenting below and by clicking the thumbs up button. I'm Michelle Tefertiller, and we'll see you next time.